All right. Hello, Dr. Miaken of Monarch Family Chiropractic. Welcome to our Tuesday night workshop on spinal hygiene. And I feel like a lot of our workshops are all very tangible in terms of supporting the highest expression of health. But in terms of our modern lifestyle and looking at the impacts that it's had on our health, I think there is, very clear indicators that show that our modern lifestyle is one of the worst lifestyles that the human race has had in terms of its impacts on chronic disease, right? We may not have people dying of, the plague running rampant or infection due to, poor cleanliness, but we do have a problem when it comes to chronic disease. We may be living longer, but in terms of the vitality and longevity that we experience within those years is very different, even what it was 100 years ago. I saw a stat that...
One more thing. That Spider-Man hoodie,
I saw a stat...
It didn't have like donate or anything like that.
I saw a stat that showed something like, 100 years ago or back in the early 1900s, the number of people who had heart disease or died from heart disease in a year was something like 6. I mean, it was such a small number, and now it's leading cause of death in our nation. So things are very different, and our modern lifestyle has, I think, something to do with it. And I'm starting with this photo here because they talk about the evolution of man. And, there's some anthropology authors who will say, we were at our healthiest, in this right here, this caveman, in terms of physiological health, what the human body could do. And then, modern man, how we're moving our body, how we're using our body is very different. When they say sitting is the new smoking, it is so true. We're literally sprinting towards death the longer we're sitting. And I'm going to keep repeating these stats because I think sometimes we need to scare ourselves into movement. And that is what tonight's workshop is all about, is some spinal hygiene movements. And we're going to get to that in a second. But I always like to share one of my favorite studies in 2010. And this is an old study. 2010, the American Cancer Society study that was published in the American Journal of Epidemiology followed 123,000 individuals for 13 years, from 1993 to 2006. And the alarming results were women who were inactive and sat over 6 hours a day were 94% more likely to die in that time frame than those who were physically active and sat less than 3 hours a day. So 94% is basically 100%. So if you're sitting 6 hours or more and lead a more sedentary lifestyle, over a 13-year time period, that moves you towards death much more swiftly. Men who were inactive and sat over 6 hours a day were 48% more likely to die than their standing counterparts. There's something called sitting disease, meaning if you are sitting for extended periods of time, you are more likely to have a body that's breaking down from obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, depression, and a cascade of other health ills and everyday malaise that comes from sitting. And so there's tons of research out there that show that sitting has such detrimental impacts to our health. So how can we get up and move? And the other thing I'll end with before we get into some spinal hygiene is you can't reverse the impacts of long-term or prolonged sitting. You can't reverse that. And they consider long-term sitting, I believe, 3 months. And so for most of you on the workshop or listening or tuning into this workshop, let's think about our upbringing. How many of you went to preschool, kindergarten? How about continued into elementary school, middle school? How many of you went to junior high, high school, and then maybe some of you went to college or even continued and did, you know, further studies in college. Even taking you through high school, that's probably 14 to 15 years of long-term sitting for 9 months out of the year, right? 3 recesses or 2 recesses. So already we have been impacted in a way in terms of long-term sitting, and our children, everything is based around technology now. So that's even worse for them than it was for us. So understand that we are all in a state just by our upbringing of being in school and sitting long-term. We have all to a degree have detriments of that impact to our frame and structure. But now that technology is a part of the game, it's streamlined that and emphasize that in every way. And so that's where doing your spinal hygiene on a daily basis is so vital to your health. Movement is life in every way. Last thing I'll say about this, let's look at this guy on the far right here. If any of you are athletes, this should make sense to you. What you do on a daily basis, 4, 6, 8, 10 plus hours a day, think about your activities every day. What you do frequently, consistently, for hours on end, on a daily basis, you are training your body to a high intense level to be in that state. So you think about Olympians, right? They're training, I don't know actually how long they're training, but they're challenging their body in various ways, multiple times a day, training to prepare their body to perform, right? Well, we who are working in a position or an activity that puts us into a posture for extended periods of time are also doing that at an intense level. And so we need to implement, I mean, it's vital for our health. We need to implement movement interruptions that will take us out of our daily postures. I say sitting is, you know, the worst posture we can be in, but even if you're standing for extended periods of time just in one position, that can be stressful as well. So what I want to share with you next is I want to go to, I put this together a while back, but it was really a spinal hygiene circuit, and I just wanted to think about coupling different movements and exercises that you can do on a daily basis. And I broke it out into wrists and hands, shoulders, neck, mid back, low back, and then really doing things that support the brain. And any spinal hygiene movement that we go over, I mean, we've done probably, I don't know, 6, 8 spinal hygiene workshops that are all covering different types of movements. But anything that you choose to do, I want you to try and think about targeting like each part of your body on a daily basis. And let's just rewind here. So when we're talking about spinal hygiene, I really consider there to be rules. The gold standard, if you are in a posture, the gold standard is to get up or interrupt your posture every 15 minutes, which is pretty quick, right? We've already been here for 11 minutes. So that would mean 4 minutes in, we've got to move. The best position is the next position. I always want to think about what's the best position, my next position. So the gold standard is every 15 minutes, do a posture interruption. And the posture interruption doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't need to be 3 sets of 10 push-ups. It's just interrupting the posture. And maybe you can introduce some of these movements into that posture interruption. Let me see. We also want you to listen to your body. Oh, it isn't showing anything on screen. Okay, thank you, Haley. Let me try this again. All right, do you guys see anything now? Somebody chat or tell me.
Yes.
Yes, you can see something? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, time frame of no pain, no gain, is not really what we found the best way to operate in terms of our body. The difference between things that feel just rigid and tight, not moving as well, but you kind of work through it, versus things that are hurting your body. So listen to your body. The biggest thing when you're going into a movement, let's say it's cervical ranges of motion, we always want you to think about, go to that movement. Let me check. Okay, awesome. Go into that movement at your greatest range of motion, but stop at that point of pain. Okay, so with cervical ranges of motion, I like you to just set up, lift this chest, bring this chin and ear over your shoulder, and then you just go into rotation. Okay, so as I'm doing this, if I had some restriction into that movement, let's say I had some restriction right here, I wouldn't try and push past that. And I may have full range this way. So as you're going through that movement, you're going to go, to that greatest range of motion, go to that point of pain, and then move back into it. Okay, so I want you to listen to your body. If you couple any breath work, if you bring intention or awareness to your body versus like putting headphones on or putting a TV on and just kind of going through the movements, anytime you bring intention and awareness to the body, that reinforces that movement. It helps with those neural pathways to get the brain to really engage in that posture. So focus, no distractions like texting, reading, watching TV, and then breathing. When you couple the breath, when you breathe in, it's a sympathetic response. When you breathe out, it's a parasympathetic response. And so when you add that breath in, you actually get a neurological component, which is really amazing. And I know I say frequency goal is 3 times a day, but I want you to think about movement throughout your day. And you don't have to get stuck doing, one specific movement all the time. But if you know of various, grouping of movements per body part, then maybe you can just pick and choose. And that's where I like, this circuit. There's many more. Happy to print this off for you in the office. You can take it home and just pick, what am I going to do? So what I want to start with is, let's just start with some, I'm going to use my table back here, but especially if you're working on computers, an easy one to do for the wrist is just start shaking it out. So go ahead and join me with this. Just want to shake this out, shake the wrists out, do for 10, 20 seconds. Okay, then I want you to find a surface. We're going to go into some extension. So you're going to find a surface, spread out your fingers, okay? Lock those elbows so the shoulders are right above those wrists. And I want you to go into a deeper extension. You don't have to put all your body weight down. I just want you to ease and do what's comfortable. You can hold this. You can do circles, clockwise, counterclockwise. Just feel how that feels through your wrists. Okay, then I want you to go into flexion. This can be really painful, and frankly, it does not feel good to me. So that means I need to do it. But I want you to go into flexion. I'm putting very little body weight down for this. Just going into this movement, holding it there is a lot for me. And just hold this and breathe. Keep those fingers spread out. You'll notice if you bring them together and flex versus if you spread them out, how they feel different for you. And then you can do circles. Again, nice and easy. Okay, go and shake out. Okay, and just take them, do circles. Now, frankly, I mean, we just did that for probably a minute. Shake them out. And how do your wrists feel, right? That's an easy one to do if you're sitting at a desk. Another one that I love to do if you're sitting at a desk, I don't know if I have this on here. I don't think I do, but if you're sitting at a desk, we're going to make me big. If you're sitting at a desk, what I want you to do, elbows, I go right at the top of the desk, and I want you to hinge at the hips. See how my back is staying straight here? want you to keep your back straight. I want you to round here. I want you to hinge at the hips. Okay, so a roller chair is nice if you have one. And you're just gonna put your elbows right on top. Then you use that roller chair. Just gonna bring it back. And just let your chest and your head fall into the opening that you're making. Now, the biggest thing, a lot of times I find when people are doing anything like a plank, a push-up, I don't want your head down here. Okay? Already our head is here all the time, right? We don't need to accentuate that. So why don't you go ahead and look up, or just keep like a nice angle through here. Now, not totally flat, maybe 20, 30 degrees. I'm just holding it and then dropping that down. Now you can hold this here, or you can do actual repetitions. See if you can get more deeper into that stretch. The biggest thing with this one though is that, again, you're hinging at the hips. Because if you're rounding here, you know, again, that thoracic spine is probably rounded already because you've got work that you're doing here. So we want to get some extension into that thoracic spine, and we want to work it more as we drop that chest forward. Very different versus here. I like that one. And again, feels really nice. So one that we haven't recorded before, let's see. I'm gonna go straight on here. I'm gonna give you a different view. But what you need is a wall. I'm gonna pretend that this is my wall here. And we'll just put whatever's closest to the wall is the knee that goes forward, all right? It's gonna be a lunge. Now you can do a lunge that's wider here that will support a stance so you don't feel like you're falling one way or the other, or you can be more narrow. I'm okay with either one. The biggest thing when you're doing this is I want your pelvis to stay level across the way. I don't want it really opened up, okay? So again, we got our wall here. My wall's on my right side, so my right side is forward. Now, another thing, anytime you're lunging, I don't want that knee to go forward. So it's not a deep bend, but, right, knee's right above the ankle, okay? You can keep this knee soft here. So with this one, some of you guys maybe have showed this. Arm, okay? You're going to actually rotate. So my palm is facing the opposite wall. As I rotate through, so I'm going to rotate my chest here. I'm going to flip it around. It's almost like I'm giving the wall a high five. I'm going to flip it around, rotate my chest, and come through. This feels amazing. Now, as you're rotating through, you can come off the wall a bit. So if you notice, man, I don't have a lot of movement, so I might, be touching the wall or skimming the wall. I don't want you touching the wall. So if you're closer to the wall, you have to do a much deeper rotation, get the rotation here to open up the shoulders. Okay, so again, knee above the ankle, nice bend through here, keep this level. And as you rotate, the rotation should happen up through here. I'm okay if this pulls forward this way, coming through, I just don't want it opening up this way. Let's try it from the other side. One thing that I have challenge with for me is I tend to roll forward right through here. So engaging the back muscles and getting some movement up through here to engage some of those rotator cuffs to hold me back here is really work that I need to do for me. So this is a nice one that'll engage that part. But again, let's try it this way. Let's see if you can see me straight on here. See the rock star Dr. K over there. So let's just see if I can show you from this way. So again, right, you're balanced through here. And as you come through, my palm's open to that side. And I'm coming through, opening up that palm as I come through. And that feels really nice. And depending on how far I am, I'm a pretty good distance, probably 1.5 feet. So if I come closer to the wall, it's going to be really much more challenging as I open that up. Okay. So again, really nice. And you're going to go to the other side, right? Now, whatever side you're on, that front leg closest to the wall is a leg that is in the front. Just repeated myself. That was great. So I really like that movement, and that's upper back. It's getting some movement into the low back. But again, because we are just pulled so forward, anything to open this up is really wonderful. I like that one. So let's go back to my circuit. Now we've got some great, if we pop down to this low back lumbar spine, we've got some great videos on our YouTube channel that go over wobbles, that go over hip lifts, that go over pelvic circles. I'm not going to spend any time doing that. We've got some great, I think like 6 videos that break down wobbles in more specific ways that engage the upper body. I'm not going to spend any time on that today. The one that I do like that we don't go over very often is this glute squeezes here. So glute squeezes, exactly what it is. Oftentimes into our pelvis or into our body, we have muscles that stop working and muscles that take over. And so we get imbalance with muscles really activating and engaging our structure. And so the beauty with glute squeezes is just by squeezing your glutes, you're kind of turning everything on in the pelvis and in your, glutes and in the pelvis, and then it turns on other muscles. So one thing that I love to do, which is super easy, is just glute squeezes. Really just squeezing your glutes and releasing. And the goal would be to do 100 a day. I just did 3. I'm like, oh, it felt good to my glutes, right? So if there's anything going on low back wise, doing glute squeezes, super easy. Shooting for 100 a day and really simple spinal hygiene movement, right? Let me go back here. Share screen. Now, cat-cow. I feel like there's a couple of variations with cat-cow that can be really nice. Sorry, I go back between these two. I'm going to just drop this down. So when you're doing cat-cow, okay, knees go under hips, arms go under shoulders. I want you just to start. So with cat-cow, you're just rounding. So getting some flexion into that lumbar spine and then extending. Now, I like you to start with just the lumbar spine. A lot of times you think, oh, we got to go through the whole spine. No, I want you to just focus on lumbar spine, round and extend. Okay, just see how that feels, focusing on that lumbar spine. Then I want you to move into your thoracic spine, round and extend. Already, because I started with my lumbar spine, I could tell it fatiguing. Okay. Now, the other one I want you to do is I want you to go through the full spine, but I want you to start in the sacrum and think about a wave moving up your spine. So again, we're just doing modifications of cat-cow. How can we intentionally bring movement into our spine? And so this is movement segment by segment. So you're going to tuck your pelvis and you're work up through your lumbar spine. So sacrum, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12, thoracic spine, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then really we drop that head forward. So that can be challenging. Even I felt there was a portion through my thoracic spine that didn't really move segmentally. It was kind of like a chunk that went. And so that's an area where I would really want to focus on how can I get movement specifically into those segments. Again, movement is life. The other one, so another modification, I'd have you go into straighten your arms. It's almost like a child's pose. We're not going all the way back there. And I want to see if you can get some cat-cow into this position. Let's see. I want you to, there you go. Keep these knees right above, or these hips right above your knees, okay? But you're gonna drop your arms forward, and then you're gonna go into cat-cow as well. And that'll target more of your thoracic spine, which frankly is a portion of the spine that needs to be moved into extension frequently. Because life is just in this space, everything pulls forward. And so if we can keep that extension into that thoracic spine, then we're doing much better. I love to ask the question, why at freezing temperatures, why does a river not freeze? Right, you have everything around it frozen, but why does the river still have water that at temperatures that are freezing? Why is that, water not frozen? The simple answer is movement, right? Movement creates friction. Movement creates life. So the more movement you have in a body and spine, the better off you are. How am I doing on time? 6:13. All right, guys. So let's go back to my circuit here. Does anyone, well, I'm not even going to pose this question, or you can type it in. Does anyone know how many miles of walking the brain needs in terms of input on a daily basis? And just to, and please type it in because I'm curious what you guys think. Because 10,000 steps is around 5 to 6 miles. Okay, so I know there was a big push to get 10,000 steps in on a daily basis. But if you look at what the human frame and the brain actually need in terms of input, if it's just walking, it's 12 to 13 miles a day. Okay, now if you're doing other movement and exercise, that decreases your need for walking. But if that's all you're doing, you need 12 to 13 miles a day. And you talk to some people who walk, well, they don't walk for a living, but they spend a lot of time on their feet, say, oh man, I'm tired. I'm walking 12, 13 miles a day. I'm like, that's exactly what your brain needs. That's what we all need. And so I have this section down here that just talks about what can you do, for brain engagement. All of these engage the brain. If you're walking, if you're already moving, getting exercise above and beyond that, walking 7 to 8 miles a day, then you're probably doing pretty good. But one of the things I love is rebounding. So if you have a stability ball or a trampoline, that rebounding, that bouncing up and down is really great for the brain. It's something we love for children and kiddos to do, is their brain is moving through development. It's a wonderful movement for them. So I'm going to end with that one. Thank you for being here tonight. These spinal hygiene workshops are always nice to do in person because we can do the things together and we can just check each other's form and just really talk about how it feels to do some of the things we're doing. I hope you were able to do some of the movements with me today, or try them and then let Dr. Kristen or I know how they go for you. And if we need to tweak or check anything, happy to do that. But the more you're moving your body on a daily basis is really shifting you to a state of health and ease. Movement is life. I can't say that enough. One of our colleagues, he has a tagline that says, if we are human, we need to move. If we are an older human, we need to move more. And if we are an injured, older human, we need to move the most, right? And so just because we're injured doesn't mean we have to stop. It's fine-tuning and modifying things that we're doing. And by the time people come to us and they've got degeneration in the spine, it's how can we introduce some movement, stop it from progressing in terms of degenerative change, and then help support a higher expression of health. And everything you do on a daily basis will help build good health, good structure. Again, I just keep it in mind. What we do on a day-to-day basis, hours on end, is training our body at an intense level. So how can we take away from that intense training of those postures that we find ourselves in. So thanks for being here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to take